45. Brown, 45. Hot, 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 hot.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least 3 households, 1 studio, NFL Australia head office, American football Australia head office, and right now over in Raymond James Stadium, because joining me is a 9-year veteran of the league. He's the highest drafted Australian ever at pick number 63 out of Georgia Tech. An Australian Outback representative, and from what I've heard, an all-around nice guy. Number 97 for the Tampa Bay Bucks, Mr. Adam Gotsis. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for that little wrap-up. That was good.
You'd be surprised what you can find out when you speak to a few people. So,
yeah.
Are you surprised, or when you got drafted? We'll get to that more now. But hearing that you were the highest ever Australian, is that still a bit surreal?
Yeah, definitely, man. It's there's more Aussies coming over now. I think, I was probably before how many there are now, but yeah, it's definitely surreal, man. And I'm definitely proud, something I'm very proud of, to be able to represent the country and go that high in a sport where there's only 250 spots and, millions of kids trying to get there every day. So, it's definitely something that, I'm very prideful of. And, hopefully it's just motivation for a lot of other guys that are trying to get over and get to where I am now.
I do think it's a great record to hold, but I do think it won't last forever, mate. We've got some big kids coming through and some real high prospects it'll take that spot soon, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way the sport's developing, it's just getting the kids over at a young age where they can develop. I think, we've got a lot of talent, but, unless they kind of come in and can get enough years in college and things like that, it's really hard to get enough film out there for teams to take a shot on you early in the draft. So, I hope a lot of kids can look at it and say, instead of waiting until I'm 20, 21, try to get over at 17, 18, early recruiting. If not, try to get over here in high school and play a year or two and do it that way. Because I think, Jesse Williams was another high draft pick, and he came over through the JUCO, went to Alabama, did 4 years, and then entered the draft. And I think when it comes to getting drafted, a lot of these teams, they want to see the film on you. They want to see how you've developed over the years, rather than a 6-month pathways program or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, we might take a late round draft pick on him and do it that way. And but yeah, it's definitely something that, I hope a lot of kids aspire to beat. And, I hope many do, I hope we can have 2-3 Aussies going in the early rounds. I think that'd be something awesome to watch on draft day, being an Australian.
100%. And things like the IPP program that are, like, they're taking their chance later on in the draft instead of seeing the potential to get them possibly earlier. But getting kids over there earlier is going to help for sure. But for those that watch and listen to this podcast a lot, I always start with one question, just to bit of an icebreaker and get inside your head a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm interested with this one just because I feel like you've got a few that you could rattle off. But the most famous person in your phone, mate?
Famous person in my phone? Oof. I don't know. I'll probably have to go like NFL guys, just being in that locker
100%.
room. DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller. Trying to think who else. Probably those two, being like, us shared lockers right next to him and played by him. But yeah, those two probably the most famous people.
You're saying you have to go NFL. There's so many people listening to this where you're like, I would love to say that I've got an NFL person in my phone. So I'd be dropping that straight away.
Yeah.
You're a Melbourne born and raised lad, but were you a typical Melbourne kid, like growing up, football, cricket kind of stuff?
Yeah, 100%, man. Cricket, it was like cricket Saturday mornings, basketball all Saturday afternoon, Sunday was footy, and then, anything else that I could play, I would. Through school, it was a bit of rugby. But literally, it was like, just loved all sports, soccer, everything, man. And then growing up, it was like, I played for like 3 basketball teams on a Saturday. I'd play my footy team at Yarra Junior Football League, and then I'd play my brother's team like in the afternoon. So it was like sport all weekend. but I grew up like kind of in a city, and then I went to school kind of in the suburbs. So I went to school like in the Q area. But yeah, I grew up in like Richmond, Abbotsford area. So a lot of my time was like I didn't really have a lot of friends like around that went to like Q primary, Q high school, stuff like that. So it was like I was just at home. It'd be me and my brother in the street kicking the footy, playing basketball down at the local like basketball like school, just going down there shooting hoops. And yeah, it was like anytime I could get out to like, one of the footy parks and go have a kick or something, that's what I was doing like on the weekend and stuff. It was just nonstop.
Thinking of you kicking the footy out in the middle of Richmond, though, it's a pretty busy area nowadays. How was it back then?
It was still busy. It was still busy, but we were pretty good. It was like we're on a little side street, so it was all right, see a car coming, jump off the road. Sometimes you might hit a little car with the footy every now and then, but nah, for the most part it was pretty good.
And did you know much about the NFL growing up, or was it not really till you made your way out to the Monash
Not
Warriors?
not really, man. Honestly, like growing up, like I think my football knowledge was like I remember one Christmas we got like Madden as a football like on Xbox, and then I think I watched like a college football game. I think it was like the Texas USC bowl game with Vince Young, Reggie Bush. I think my brother had downloaded it or something. We had watched it, and that was a crazy game. And then yeah, like I think around that year or that time, like made my way down to Monash, and I was really looking at getting into like rugby, and then found a flyer for American football, and yeah, went down there and kind of started my football journey.
I love hearing things like that, and you think that one flyer has changed your life,
Yeah,
dramatically,
it really has.
really. But
It really has.
once you got down to Monash, you went with your older brother, like I've heard you
Yeah,
mention a few times. What
yeah,
you talk about your time, like playing down there, in those
yeah.
kind of early years?
Yeah, it was crazy because the league back then, like Gridiron Victoria, it was like under 14s to under 19s. I think now it's like under 17s or maybe still under 18s, but it was like under 19. So I was like, I think 15 at the time. I'm like sitting in the car with my mum and brother, and I'm seeing like all these like 19-year-olds coming down there, and I'm like, dude, no way, I'm not doing this. Like, not a chance. So my brother was in the car, and he's like, I'll go down there with you. So that's kind of how that went. And then, yeah, when I went down there, man, it was just like such a hodgepodge of dudes. You had like students. It was at Monash University. That's where they used to train and stuff. So you had some students that were just like, Americans or were interested in the sport. You had guys that were, footy players coming down, and, rugby players. You just had a bunch of different cats down there. And then you had like a lot of the senior guys would coach the juniors. So a lot of those senior guys had been playing for a few years, and, a bunch of footy players and stuff. And yeah, it was just like, I just fell in love with the game there. It was like, there's a spot for you. You're a big guy that can move, and there's a spot for a little guy that can run really fast, and there's a spot for a guy that might not be as athletic. So I just fell in love with like that aspect of the game. Like there's a spot for everyone. And then yeah, just had some good coaches. Like one of my coaches was Dan Levin, who ended up being like the president of Gridiron Victoria at one point, and he was an American bloke that he really just like taught me the basics of football. Like I was playing a bit of O-line, bit of D-line. He taught me how to long snap, which I still try to do to this day. Like I've been a backup long snapper on NFL rosters, and that all started down at Monash University, and it's just been a journey. But I remember like, the games changed as well. Like we're down there, it's kind of like this backyard football where playbooks are super simple. Guys are just getting laid out left, right, and center, and it's really just survival of the fittest at that point.
So you say being a 15-year-old looking at these 19-year-olds thinking, holy shit. But I've heard from a few mutual friends that there's a rule that got brought in called the Gotsis rule. Is there any truth to that, mate?
Yeah, I've heard that too, but I don't know about that. Yeah, I think that kind of came like I was about 17 at the time, and I was doing pretty well in the junior comp, so I played in the senior comp, which is 19 and above, and I think I came like second in defensive like MVP voting. I had like 14 sacks or something, so I was just running around these old blokes off the edge and just sacking quarterbacks. And then I still had junior eligibility, so I came back down and wanted to play in the juniors, and I think on the first game we beat a team like 115 to something, and they were just like, yeah. I remember like the president was Dan at the time. He's like, you don't have to be playing, and I'm like, yeah, but I want to play with like guys my age. I've been playing against all these old blokes, so I'm trying to get a couple licks back, as we like to say.
So you're saying you had 14 sacks for the year. I'm presuming you would have had 14 sacks in one game, but going back to the juniors.
Yeah, it wasn't fair. So, I ended up actually getting hurt playing in the junior comp. Because I was doing everything. I was playing defensive line. I was playing a bit of quarterback, a bit of running back, and I actually broke my collarbone playing running back. I remember I tried to hurdle over like the smallest guy on the field. He was like a safety, and he like clipped my back foot, and then I just landed straight on my shoulder, and I was like, damn, broke my collarbone. And then yeah, we ended up not winning the championship that year. So
Karma coming back to get
100%, 100%.
You said you've gone pretty well. You actually ended up getting selected, as I mentioned before, to represent Australia. You were only young, you're about 19, 20 at the time. That must have been an experience.
Yeah, I think so the first time I represented Australia was the junior team, and that was, I think, it was like the under 18 comp, and I think I was about 16, 17 at the time. And then for the senior comp I got selected too when I was 17, and that was like under 19 and above. So I was like 17, and I remember like I'm going down to like the state trainings and the Australian tryouts, and everyone would just call me kid, like, because I literally was like this kid out there just playing. And yeah, it was probably one of my other proudest moments is being able to wear the green and gold, man. It's any chance you can have to represent your country and all the people back home, and that spirit that we all have as Australians whenever we step on any field or pitch or court. It's just hard yakka at whatever you're doing, and that's just how I've carried myself, and it seems to pay off pretty well.
So, like I mentioned, I've been able to reach out to a few different people and get a few stories. Hopefully, these are appropriate that we can talk about.
I hope so.
There's two things I have to ask about. Something about a cricket pitch in Phillip Island. Is there a story behind there?
Oh yeah, 100%, man. Growing up, like, would go to Phillip Island. Like, me and my cousins would all share a house. It was their house, but there'd be like 8 of us in there, 9 of us kids in there. And literally, like, every summer, we're out there like 6 a.m. getting the pitch ready in the backyard, and we'll have the ashes on, and we're literally playing from sun up to sundown just in the backyard. All the rules, house on the fool's out, over the fence on the fool's out. We had a couple like clotheslines out the backyard. If you hit the clothesline on the fool, it's out. We had this shed. It literally had probably 1,000 like ball dings in there because we're just playing with a real cricket ball in the backyard. And yeah, the parents weren't too happy, but literally every summer and even now when we go back, it's backyard cricket. The only difference is we're probably having a couple cold ones while doing it.
You ever talk to the boys in the locker room about, preparing a pitch at 6 a.m. and tell them about the ashes?
Yeah, they got no idea what I'm talking about. I kind of mentioned cricket to them and they have no idea. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like a baseball bat, but more of like a paddle. There's 2 guys. They'll be out there all day, batting. And, it's not like baseball where it's just one pitcher. It's like you're going to have like 10 different pitches. You've got like a guy that can spin the ball, a guy that's bowling it 100 miles an hour at you. And, you might have 2 guys out there that face 300 pitches like in the whole day. So it's like a concept that they just don't understand. But, I show them a couple of the old highlights that we got from the backyard, and I think they understand it a bit better there.
It'd be a great little locker room game, I reckon. But
yeah.
Good luck getting it around. The last one that I had to, and if I've got this wrong, please, Luchoncelli.
Yeah.
What's the story
The
behind
Luchoncelli. So one of my buddies, I don't know, I can't even remember where that came from, but it was definitely like a key like name or something that would just call someone like in the backyard cricket, like it was just someone's nickname at that point. And it was like if they're having a rough one out there, or they make a good play or something, it was just like it would just be the nickname that they'd get, the Luch, but yeah, Nicky Gould I think came up with that one, so I don't know if you reached out to him about that, but
I'm not saying who
You
I
can't
got it
reveal
from.
your sources. Yeah, yeah. Nah, but yeah, it brings back a lot of memories, that name.
So as soon as you get back from representing Australia, you sign and you head over to Georgia Tech. Well,
Yeah.
how was that process and how did that all come about?
Yeah, it was actually a pretty tough one. I got back and, then I started realizing like this college thing might be, legit. I've played in like the IFAF World Championships. I've played against, a few of these teams around the world and, against Team USA a couple times now and realizing like, okay, there's not much difference between me and these guys. They've obviously been playing from a young age, but I feel like physically I'm just a little bit behind. Mentally, I can understand the game pretty well, but I just got to take that next step. And I had some great people around me. I had John Layton, who's been a big part of Gridiron Australia. Paul Manera, another guy who's been part of Gridiron Australia. Those two really like mentored me. They were both on that Australian team and kind of like mentored me into it. And then it was literally like a process of figuring out, okay, well, how do I get eligible, like, or whatever it is for college, Another guy like Jeff Reinbold, I remember I came across him at like, it was like a down under a bowl game where a bunch of US kids came over. And, that was one thing he talked about was just getting eligible and making sure you're eligible. Otherwise, teams won't touch you. So, I remember it was like I emailed like the clearinghouse, like the NCAA, and I was just like, "Look, I'm trying to get over. How do I, get eligible? I know I got to figure out my GPA and all this stuff." And they basically sent back a list of things to do. So, I had to go back. At this point now, I'm out of high school. I'm just working, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to go back to my high school, get my, they call them like syllabuses and stuff, and so I had to go back and get my syllabuses and like figure out like how the conversion is. So I had to print them all off from like year 9 through year 12, send them over to the clearinghouse. Once they get them, they go through like basically what the course is, how you grade it out, all this stuff, and then they send you back your GPA. And then once you have that, had to go sit the SAT, which was like a 2.5 hour drive, 3 hour drive. Was the only place like this testing center. So then it was like me and mum driving out. I don't even know where it was, in the middle of Victoria somewhere, showing up and taking like a 3.5 hour exam. And, the first time I went in there, I didn't even know what the test was. I just went in there and took it and didn't get the score I needed, that's for sure. So then it was like, okay, well, let me buy like the prep guide. And I'm just trying to do like this schoolwork basically, like at home. And then it was like the next one was like 2 months from now. So it was like, okay, wait 2 months, go take it again. And I think I ended up taking it like 3 or 4 times. Because by the time I got all my grades back and stuff, I was missing like a credit. So I only had like 15 credits. And I think you needed 16 to be D1 eligible. So I remember it was like, I ended up getting like, it was like 10 points below the score I needed when they compared GPA to SAT. So then I was like, shoot, I might need to take it again. And during all this time, I'm kind of, I initially started talking to Hawaii, and then they kind of dropped off after like a few months of just talking to them. And this was like early days. And then I was literally just like emailing. I'd go to a school website, find out who the recruiting coordinator is off the website, get an email, put it in the email, just tell them, hey, I'm this kid from Australia trying to get, a D1 offer somewhere. And literally, I think I emailed like 100 schools and maybe 2 replied. So yeah, it just wasn't working at all. And then, kind of had some of these coaches reaching out to people that they knew. I think John knew a few people at Boise State. Paul knew someone at Baylor and Georgia Tech and maybe another place. So I was just kind of making sure I'm training, making sure I'm, trying to get eligible and all this stuff. And I ended up, Georgia Tech ended up helping me out. And, I think they wrote like a letter to the NCAA that kind of like, we still want to recruit this guy. And, I think they ended up giving me like an extra half credit. And, they ended up accepting like my score, even though it was like 10 points less. And, yeah, that kind of went to me, going to Georgia Tech and them getting me over for a visit. And yeah, just worked out like that way. So it was really tough, especially like the time difference, everything like that. Like I'm up late, like sending emails at night, and it's middle of the day here, then the day difference, and you're not getting a reply for a few weeks. Then when you do get a reply, it's like they might not see your reply for another, day or two. So it was really tough. It wasn't as easy as what it is now with like all these, websites where you can upload, film to, you can upload everything to, and, the coaches can just get it on there. Even Twitter wasn't around, so you can't even just go on there and talk to DM a coach or something. So it was just really tough, and I just kind of stuck through it and was like, if this is something that I want to do, it's, this is part of the process.
Was that also, you're saying you're getting your schooling in line, but sending over tape and things like that? How were you going sending that over?
Yeah, so literally, like the tape that I had was my mum in the at the games back home with a VCR like tripod, just filming the games. And I remember I had a friend at high school that was pretty good with computers and stuff. So I'd copied him to a CD, sent him to him. He kind of cut me up a little highlight tape of just plays and kind of put together like a little 4-minute highlight tape. And then I remember when I went up to Sydney and trained with Paul Manera, and he basically just, because Georgia Tech was running the triple option at that time, so he just put me through like a workout of, all right, you're playing left tackle, let's see you pull around, and if you're cutting off the backside safety, all right, let's see like O-line, let's see D-line get-offs, things like that. And that's basically just what they wanted to see, was just how does this guy move for a big guy? What's his body like? Can he bend? What's his bend like? What's he look like when he squats? Like, things like that. So they just want to see an athlete, and the thing I always tell these young guys are, get as athletic and whatever as possible, because the school's going to teach you how to play football, just like any other job. You can have that baseline, but like once you get there, they're going to tell you how to do the job that they want. And then it's on you to adapt their coaching, listen to what they're doing, and just, do what they want you to do. So, when I first went over to Georgia Tech, like they recruited me basically as like an athlete. They weren't sure if I was going to be O-line or D-line. And then I think like the conversation I had with Paul Johnson was, they only had 5 returning guys on the D-line. So we'll start you over there, and if that doesn't work out, we'll bring you over to O-line. So, it was kind of just be ready for it all. And, then it was just training. Like I'd go down to Dendy Park, and, I think it was somewhere in Melbourne, and train with John Layton 2-3 times a week. And, this is before I even know that I'm going to Georgia Tech, but I'm just out there. I'm paying this guy to basically make me throw up every day. And, it was like $50 a workout. So, I'd show up there, and he'd have me running in the sand. He'd have me running like the shuttles that they do at the combine. He'd have me on the speed ladders. He'd have me running like 40-yard dashes, like over and over and over. And then, yeah, it was just like just getting myself ready. I think I had shin splints as well. So like I'd show up, I'd put the deep heat on, and then straight after I'm icing down like in the car ride home. And it was brutal, but I just had the goal in mind of like getting to where I needed to be. It was all just like, okay, I just got to get that opportunity. And once you get that opportunity, it's what you do with it. So, once I went over to Georgia Tech, and, they said that they were going to offer me, it was kind of just, take it with both hands and do something with it.
Hearing all that, it's definitely no surprise that you're heading into your 10th season now, and a veteran in the league now, which is huge, especially like you said, coming from Australia and not really a background in it. So, what did you actually study while you got over there?
Yeah, so I studied business administration, and then it was operations supply chain management. So I always wanted to be in business. That was like what I wanted to do if I was in Australia or not. I really wanted to get into like sports management and things like that. They just didn't offer it at Georgia Tech. But that's something that like I'm still passionate about. Like I remember like year 10 in high school, I did my work experience at North Footy Club. So I was down there with Donald McDonald, and I actually know Luke McDonald. I played junior footy with him. So he kind of got me the in with his dad down there. And, just being around the operation side of the game, I always said, if I can't play, I want to be as close as I can to it, and even in college, like talking to the football ops guys and always seeing like what they're doing front office wise and how that all works. I'm just as interested in that stuff as I am, playing the game. If I can't play, I'd love to just being around sport, man. And then, as I said, growing up playing everything, it was like sports my avenue, man.
And
So
you say that you got to go to North Melbourne. You're a North Melbourne man. Have you been back
yeah,
since?
I have gone down. I've watched them boys train a little bit because when I get down, it's like right preseason time, before the actual preseason matches start and all that. So go down, catch up with Luke, walk around the club a little bit. And my cousin is actually Laura Kane, who's like the pretty high up in the AFL right now, copping a bit of flack. But no, it's just awesome just to be around. I love AFL, I love footy. That was my passion growing up. So yeah, to get down to Arden Street and just to see even how much that's changed from year 10 in high school and to now, it's awesome. I just need them boys to win a few more games.
Yeah, they're on the rise, mate. They're having a good
I
start.
know.
Do you get to watch it while you're over there, or
I do, man. I got the Watch AFL app, and I try to watch as many games as I can. So I think the Pies play them at 5 o'clock in the morning our time tomorrow. So I'll probably catch it at 6:30, 7 o'clock when the kids are up. Throw it on the TV. So yeah, I try to watch as many games as I can.
Yeah, I was about to say with young kids as well, just start there. This
Yeah,
is AFL. This is what it's like back home, and
that's it. That's
get them
it.
indoctrinated as well.
That's it.
So a great man once said that luck is preparation meeting opportunity. And in 2016, that preparation met its opportunity for you when you got called at number 63 to go to the Broncos, who just come off the Super Bowl, mind you, with
Yeah.
the Super Bowl, which is huge. What do you remember of that time and, getting ready for the draft?
Yeah, I remember going into my senior year, I was just, I just wanted to give myself the best chance. I remember I was waking up at like 5 a.m. every morning, just going to the weight room, working out, doing everything I could, get leading into my senior year. And then I think we got about 7 or 8 games in and I tore my ACL senior year. And, the first thing that popped in my mind was just, damn, I can't finish this thing out with the guys. I just wanted to be there for the guys that year. And then, after a few weeks, it kind of like was just like, damn, I'm not going to be able to do the combine or, do the senior bowls and all that stuff. But I just told myself, like, you've left everything out there on the field every time you've been on there. And that's what coaches will see. Every opportunity you had to be on the field, you just gave it your all, you gave it a crack and, you were running your ass off, you were doing everything right. And then even just around the building, at Georgia Tech, you just being a good person, doing all the right things. So when it was time for the draft and all that pre stuff, I was just pretty comfortable with like my body of work. I was just like, look, it's all out there, I know I'll interview pretty well. I can just be pretty honest with everything. And then, yeah, but going through the combine and all that was pretty crappy, like not being able to compete with your peers and show what you got. Cause I feel like I would have done pretty well if I wasn't injured and kind of had to go through that. But then, draft night, I remember I had all my siblings were in America, like visiting me. Had a bunch of friends come over and I think, I don't know I think we watched the first 2 rounds were on the first night. And, I kind of just said like, look, come over, we'll have a couple beers and, if anything happens, great. If nothing happens, we'll just hang out. And then the next day, I think I had organized to get like some barbecue and stuff just catered. And we can all just eat, hang out, chill. And, when it comes on, we'll just enjoy. And, I remember, Broncos were on the clock and I got the call and, I wasn't sure if it was them or the Panthers calling at the time. It was just definitely a number I didn't recognize. And, yeah, it was just an exciting time, because even, being injured and doing all that, I was just like, I just always just had faith with wherever I go, man. And it's an opportunity. I didn't care if it was first round or undrafted. I just told myself, like, just like I did with college, man, if you can get an opportunity with the team, they're going to see something. They're going to, know what you're about and you just go from there. So you just take whatever opportunity comes your way and make the most of it. So, I ended up getting picked to Denver. And I remember like even then it was like I got drafted. I just had surgery like a couple months ago. So my suits, I had like 2 suits, none of them fit because I'd lost a bunch of weight. So like my sisters that night were like hemming my suit together, like with like a sewing kit and had to get on a plane the next morning at like 5 a.m. to go out to Denver. So, shout out the twins and my twin sisters that, strapped together a suit for me in, a couple of hours.
Yeah, that's huge, especially the night before, just making sure that
Yeah.
it's good on the shoulders. We want to make you look
Yeah,
good. So.
it looked bad before they got their hands on it, so they definitely did a good job for me.
Absolutely, that's huge. So you did get your first start in week 1, which is huge. And it was a Super Bowl rematch against Carolina. Like, what an incredible way to start your career.
Yeah, 100%, man. And even just being on that defense and that team, it was crazy. What a way to come into the NFL. Top tier. The detail, the way they practice, the way they train, what they did off the field, everything was just top notch. So you just want to soak it all up. And like I said earlier, I had DeMarcus Ware on one side of me in the locker room, like literally next locker to me, and then Von Miller next to him. So, Super Bowl MVP 2 seats down from me, just surrounded with all those guys, had the whole no-fly zone in there. So Keeb, Chris Harris, Bradley Roby, all these guys, TJ Ward, that were just like unbelievable lights out on that defense. And then to come in and be like, all right, you're in it, and then, to play the Panthers in that rematch after how that game went, it was going to be a big game. And then we ended up winning. I think they missed a field goal to win the game, and it was just like, but I think, this defense, we just had Cam Newton's number, and, I don't think he really shook back from that Super Bowl loss. And, I think this defense was just out there to do it again to him. So, yeah, it was an awesome game.
And you spent 4 years at the Broncos. How was it over there? Especially, the people that haven't really experienced it. The altitude up there is something else.
Yeah, 100%, man. I remember when I first got out there, I think I'd walked up the stairs a couple times at like the team hotel, and I was just like, dude, this isn't right. Like, I'm out of breath at the top of the stairs. I was like, this altitude is real. But yeah, that first year was kind of rough, man. Even though I was soaking up all this stuff, I just couldn't get the body back. You're in it straight away and you're just going, and, coming off the knee, and I feel like I half rehabbed at Georgia Tech, half with the Broncos, and then I didn't feel like I was back to myself before they kind of threw me in there. So it was really tough. I was trying to play catch up through the whole year. And it was just a really rough first year, I think, just trying to find my place, trying to get back to like the player I know I am. And then I really needed like that off season to come so I could, get into my second year. And I felt like, year 2, year 3 started making those strides, getting back to who I was. And then, year 4 tore my ACL again. And, it was almost like, I felt like it was a blessing in disguise in a way. I felt like I never rehabbed my knee properly enough. So I was playing in a knee brace for 4 years there. And then, when I re-tore it, I was like, okay, we can go in there, we can fix it all up. And it's almost like a second career starting. So the 4 years was great there, being around some great coaches and great people. And a lot of people I'm still friends with today, and coaches that I still see coaching around the league today. But it was unfortunate that we just couldn't put it all together because, that was a hell of a defense, and we just needed to, have all phases of the game playing well, including ourselves playing better than what we had to. And, we just never got it going enough to give it a run. But, time in Denver was good, man. Definitely no complaints.
You did have a guy, name of Peyton Manning, who just retired. So the offense was kind of doing a little bit after that. But, so, like you said, you hurt yourself in year 4, and then you've moved on down to Jacksonville, bit warmer, bit easier to rehab down there, I'm imagining.
Yeah. So I hurt myself at the end of year 4, and, I remember I had surgery, and then my first son was born, and then COVID happened like that next week. So it was like everything was shut down basically everywhere. But the benefits of that was I didn't have to worry really about like, okay, I'm missing out on stuff. I'm not with a team right now because all the teams were kind of scrambling about what to do with COVID and all that. And some teams were doing OTAs, some teams were doing virtual workouts. So it was all kind of a bit of everywhere, and all I had to focus on was my rehab. So, I was out in Denver still at the time. I think I had a great team around me. I rehabbed at like a facility up in Golden, Colorado. And yeah, just the people I had around me, man, like it's so different to when I feel like in an NFL building, whatever's happening in that training room's going up to the GM. Whether you feel good, whether you feel bad, whether you feel like, a bit worse than you did the day before, everything's getting reported, everything like that, where I felt like not being associated with a team and just being around a good group of rehab people that just want me to be my best, daily and there to support me, whether it's mentally, physically, whatever it's spiritually, all this stuff. I just felt like I had that group around me. So, you know, I think like I said, my first knee reconstruction never got back, and then the second one, I was back in like 6.5 months, and I haven't worn a knee brace since, and I've been playing some of my best football, I feel like, and since that second one, so it just felt like almost a restart to my career. Had different energy around me, different people, and yeah, made my way down to Jacksonville. I got a call from the GM at the time, and it seemed like a great fit coming down here and being part of the defense. And yeah, I came down here, and I think I ended up starting nearly every game that first year back, and had like 40 tackles or something like that. And yeah, just really felt like, okay, now I'm getting back to myself of how I play football. And unfortunately, we didn't win many games that year, but same thing. I think I look back at my NFL career. I think I've had 6 or 7 head coaches in a 9-year career. So, it's been a fresh start kind of every year, whether it was Denver, Jacksonville, those first like 8 years, it was like a rotating door at the head coach position. So you always got a new coach coming in, a new staff coming in, new philosophies. How are we going to build the team? What do we want the team to look like? And, being with Tampa now, I'm kind of with a team that like, we don't even talk about that stuff. That's all set in stone. And they've had that same kind of, message going for the last couple of years, like probably since that Super Bowl. And it's just none of that extra, BS or what's happening with the front office or what's happening up top that's affecting guys down in the lower or people walking around eggshells. This is just all football now. So yeah, definitely feels a lot different.
100%. I can remember that time as well. Jacksonville went through some pretty shaky head coaches and big times around then. So it would have been. I can only imagine what it was like in the locker room. But you managed to, you had like Big Trev up front, and you made it to the playoffs at Jacksonville. But the first one really is the one I want to talk about. One of the most incredible playoff games, the biggest comeback. I think you were 27-0 down at one point. And to be able to come back and win it like a walk-off field goal. And you talk about that game and how incredible it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into that, we won like 6 games straight or something to make the playoffs. We just had to like win out to make it. We needed a few teams to lose, and it ended up working out that way. And then, you get the foot in the door again. It's an opportunity for a team that was looking at another failed season that's making a run now. And something happened during that year where I think it was Dewey Wingard and a few of the guys all just pulled all the players together. It was like a night before one of the games and just said, look, block out all the bullshit, all the fans, whatever the coaches are saying, just block out all the shit. And it's about us, it's always about us guys in this room, us players, whatever we do, whatever we choose to do, fucking do your job. Do this, do it hard, do it whatever, and just play free, man. Don't worry about what's going to happen after. And that really like sparked us, man. We just started playing for each other, and we almost just played like those games. I just remember it was like we're just playing, and we just knew like we weren't going to lose. We're just in games at different times, and the energy in those key moments was just way different. Instead of 2 minutes to go and we're like, oh, here we go, we're losing another one. It was like 2 minutes to go and we're like, we're going to find a way to win it. Like someone's just going to make a play. And I remember, that playoff game, I think we were down 27-0. I think Agnew has a big return right before the half. And I want to say we get a field goal right before halftime off a big return. We come out in the second half. I think we have another big kick return to start the second half. And then Trev gets some points. So all of a sudden, that's a 10-point swing without the other team touching the ball. And they haven't been on the field also in the last half an hour, including the halftime. So, their offense has gone a little cold now, and we're kind of red hot. So it was just like a perfect storm. And, I think we come out, Jenkins gets a strip sack, Josh Allen returns it for a touchdown or whatever it is. And, and then we had another big punt return that set up another score. And, it's just like the way the momentum swings, and you just never know. And then that was the key to that season. Like it was just those key moments, man. We just made plays, and that season taught me so much about just the game of football. And you know, regardless of what the play was before or how something's going, it's what's happening next. And you can't change what's already happened, but what you can do is what's about to happen the next 10 seconds. How can you lock in on the next 10 seconds and make sure you're doing your job, make sure you're impacting the game. And yeah, it's just was unreal to be part of that game. I mean, it gives me goosebumps just talking about it, because I just remember seeing the guys, and you could just the energy, like the hum on the sideline, like everyone must have been on that same frequency just through that. And then Riley Patterson, big leg and kicks a game winner, and it was just the right mix of guys at the right time to win that game. And then I felt like we should have got KC the week after, but we let them slip through our fingers. So it's always like what could have been with that one.
Yeah, definitely. I remember actually sitting at home and watching that game. So listening to you talk about it, it's just bringing back the memories and the strip sacks. And it was a huge game. And Grouston, an Australian, was part of it and made history, really, because that's the first time 27-0 down. That's the biggest comeback. And I think that will
unreal,
be for quite some time. But 10 years in the league, like we've said, and you've played against some real talented players. Is there anyone that kind of stands out that, coming up against?
Yeah, I remember early in my career, we played against the Cowboys, and it was like Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, just two like Hall of Fame O linemen that they've had that were just like, damn, and they were like rolling at that point. They had Zeke that was dominating. So that's definitely two guys that have stood out to me. But I feel like every week, man, there's a guy on the O line or a running back that you're playing or a quarterback that you're just like, damn, I can't believe I'm on the field. Tom Brady, I remember playing, and Eli Manning, just some quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, like all these guys that I'm trying to chase down, and they're these greats. And when you play against them, you really understand why. They're just that next level of thinking, of awareness of every little detail. It's so different. Like Lamar might just beat you with athleticism, where I remember when we played Tom Brady, they came out in like 12, 13 personnel the whole first half, and just they'd go to empty. They'd see what we adjusted to. They'd bring a running back in. They'd bring a tight end back in, see what we adjusted to. And I think we were up maybe, two scores or something, or it was pretty tight, like a score or something, going into halftime. And then the second half we came out, and it was like they just knew everything that we were doing. They just completely schemed us up in the second half. And so there's like the methodical way of understanding the scheme, or there's just the pure athleticism way of what some of these guys do. Play breaks down and Pat Mahomes is scrambling and throws it with his left hand and keeps the drive alive. Very different, but it's beautiful in its own way. So just so many guys, man, and you can keep listing them off, like every position, whether it's tight end or run, whatever. You're just constantly just going against guys that are just top tier, and it's the NFL. They're all getting paid big bucks to do their job too. So,
what about coming from the the Australian side of things? Is there any good shit talkers? Like, has there any been amazing sledges out there that you've nearly had to just laugh about?
I laugh at most of it, because it's like, if I'm not a shit talker, so a lot of guys, that talk shit and do all that, I'm just like, fucking whatever, man. Like, I don't even know what the hell you're saying half the time, because it's like I'm so exhausted or whatever. It's just I'm just getting the call and lining up. But I feel like a few times if I've tried to talk shit, most guys just don't understand what I'm saying, so they just kind of give me a funny look, and they're just kind of like, "What this guy say to me?" But yeah, there's a few guys, like I've had a couple teammates that are just constantly like yapping during the game, and it gets pretty vulgar, and some of the stuff that they're saying, so I won't repeat it. But yeah, I'm always like, I don't have enough energy to be engaging in like these extra conversations on the side, like, but there's a bit of banter just in between, like kind of through the game, and as the game will pick in the ebbs and flows of the game, when it slows down a bit, a few guys might start getting chirpy, or towards the end of the game, if they've sealed up a win, a few guys like to talk once the game's out of, they've got the win or something. But yeah, for the most part, I just kind of just brush it off. I'm just like, oh, this guy's just a bit of a dickhead, and
So you moved last year to the Colts, and I want to talk about your mindset, and I've learned so much already, through this chat about, it's just foot to the ground and do what I got to do. But, going into year 8, you're on the practice squad before you get elevated. Like, how was your mentality and your process that the start of last year?
Yeah, so I remember last year I was going through training camp, and I was actually surprised that they released me. I think, I don't know, talking to some of the other coaches and stuff, they seemed a bit surprised, even the teammates and stuff like that. But yeah, I felt like it was kind of like they kept drafting D linemen, Jacksonville, and, whether I was out playing them or things like that, it kind of just seemed like the younger talent never really got a chance to develop, because you've got, an older vet in the room that's getting a lot of snaps, and kind of just, was a parting of ways at that point. And, their defense went pretty south last year, and they got rid of a lot of guys that were key parts in a lot of those big games that we just talked about before. So, going into the season, I was on the couch first 2 weeks, still training, still trying to do everything right, because that phone call's probably going to come at some point. Everyone's getting injured. Teams aren't playing how they thought they were, all these little things. So, yeah, really, I was just like, all right, let's find an opportunity, and got the call for Indy and went up there for a workout, had a good workout. I was actually going to get picked up from a driver and go have a workout with Cincinnati like that next day. But Indy was like, no, we want to sign you. We don't want you to go there. So, they said they wanted to sign me. They said, you're going to spend a week or two on practice squad or whatever, then we'll elevate you. So, yeah, got there, and, what a room to be in. Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Latu, Taven Bryan, a guy I played with in Jacksonville, was there. So, to be part of that D-line and that group there was just awesome, And, yeah, got there, and I really just it was crazy because it's a division rival that I've played against a bunch of times. So a lot of the O-linemen and me had definitely tangled a few times. So it was kind of a bit awkward that first week, but once you're in that locker room, you're part of that brotherhood. And yeah, same thing with Indy, man. I felt like we were playing some good football and just couldn't get it all going at the same time, and even at that point, they were still in the hunt, kind of at the end of the year. They just needed to win a few more games, and they couldn't. So, spent a couple good weeks there, man, just putting in that work. And same thing, like, I'm just like, well, I'm here. Let me battle for a spot, get in the rotation, get in the roster. And then, yeah, basically kind of got stiffed a bit by him, I felt like. I think I'd been inactive a week or something. And the next week it was like a Saturday practice, and finished the walkthrough. Was ready to get on the plane and fly out to New York. And, I got to go talk to one of the scouts, and he's like, look, one of our linebackers is hurt. We're going to elevate one of the practice squad guys because he has to replace him for the game. By doing that, we need to free up a roster spot. So we're going to release you, but we're going to sign you back next week. So, they fly out to do the game. I'm in Indy. I'm like waiting for the call next week. And I think Wednesday comes around, haven't heard anything. So have my agent reach out to him, and yeah, they basically said he can go back to Jacksonville. So that's kind of the NFL, man.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong about being stiff, though. That's
yeah. So pretty stiff. So got back to Jacksonville. Just started training down here, staying ready, and I think I waited a week or two, and then it was like, all right, Vikings called me for a workout. Went and had a workout with them, and they basically were like, look, we're thinking about signing you. We'll just see how we go. They were running hot, winning a lot of games, so I don't think they wanted to make any changes or anything. And then, yeah, basically I got back from that trip up there for a workout, and then Tampa was like, shoot, we'll give you a call, and if you want to come down here, have a workout. And, for me, it was like, shoot, let me drive down to Tampa and see how that goes. So went down there, had a workout, killed it. And then, yeah, I was like, damn, the Tampa defense is the same defense that I was playing in Jacksonville. The 2 years we had pretty good years, and, we went to the playoffs. Mike Caldwell was our DC. He was linebacker coach with Todd Bowles, who's the head coach. So it's this, basically the same defense. So yeah, I'd already played in that system for 2 years, picked everything up really quick. But just being a true pro through it all, man, that was the biggest thing. Like, no matter what the situation is, how you get there, how you don't, it's just whether your reps are you're getting 100 reps or whether you're getting 3 reps. It's just being a pro, showing up on time, taking notes, studying the game, improving yourself daily, doing all the little things right, around the building, when you're on the field, off the field. And yeah, got a call this offseason to come back with them. And yeah, I was like, that's a no-brainer, man. I'd love to be down there.
Yeah, that's huge. I think it just shows that, like, especially in the NFL, they don't owe you nothing. So they're not going to, we better give him a go because we owe him that. Like,
yeah, they don't owe you nothing.
Saturday and Wednesday you're gone kind of thing. So just doing all the right things. It's got me excited. Just hearing you now, it's got me excited to see what we can produce this year in Tampa. I think it's a good year to come. But before we get onto that, mate, with Australia is like seeing the growth in Australia and, flag football, and we're getting a game next year, which is huge. How is it from over there watching the game grow and
yeah, it's unreal. Unreal, man. Unreal. Flag football, the last couple of years, probably the last 5-10 years here, is mind-boggling how big it is, So it was only about a matter of time before that kind of exploded worldwide. And, the availability for it, like, to play American football and have 11 guys on 11 guys, pads, helmets, everything set up is so tough, especially out of the US. So, flag football, to get some little flags, to have a 30-yard field or whatever it is, and you don't need uprights, you don't need any of that stuff, and you can get it into schools, you can get it into just local comps and stuff like that. So much easier just for kids to understand the concepts as well. You take out the offensive defensive line, and it's just the running and passing. And there's so many Aussies that I feel like are going to benefit from that, because that's all we do is just run around and catch footies, catch a ball. So that transition, and then to see it be an Olympic sport, and to see what's happening back home with just the blow up of it all. And yeah, it's just unreal, man. Just it's the game's grown so much, it's just it's a whole different game. And even from when I started playing, the game was eye backs, big people personnel, fucking pound the football to open up the pass game. Now it's like, we're going to spread everything out. We just want athletes. We want to find matchups, athlete on athlete, get the ball in space, and make guys tackle.
And are you going to be representing Australia again and putting your hand up for the Olympics, or?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a spot for me, man. I don't know too much about the flag football, running routes and covering Tyreek Hill and doing all that. But, if they just want me to blitz every play and try and tackle a quarterback, I might put my hand up for that.
Hey, if there's a chance to get the Aussie on the back end, then
yeah, exactly.
And that game that's in down in Melbourne next year, it's literally a field goal away from where you grew up.
Yeah,
like, it's incredible to be thinking about that stuff.
Yeah, that's unreal, man. I know, like I think I've said it before, is growing up, grand final day, I can hear the stadium from my house. That's how like inner city I am. It's literally like a 10-minute drive to the G, and never would have thought, an NFL game would be there, and let alone while I'm playing in the NFL. But just to see what's going to happen there. And I know every time I come home, and typically I try to get home, be in Australia for the Super Bowl, because I love just seeing the buzz around the city, and all the pubs be having, these 10 a.m. watch parties on a Monday, and guys are popping in on their lunch break and having a couple beers and throwing on a jersey, and you've got 20 different random jerseys watching the game. That's what it's about. So it's going to be awesome, man. It's just going to be a spectacle of sport. And, what better place than the sporting capital? We've got so many people from all over the world that love Melbourne, love Australia, and to put such a big sporting event there, I think it's going to be an unreal turnout. and just, yeah, unbelievable. Great experience for all the players that are going to come over and get to see what the Aussies are about. And, great experience for all the, the Aussie football fans, the guys that love football, love American football, even if they don't, even if they just love Aussie rules football and rugby. We love our sport back home in Australia. It doesn't matter what it is. We just want to watch it. So there's going to be so many guys out there getting their first taste of what NFL is about, a bit of the fan experience, seeing all that stuff, and hopefully gain a bunch of new followers, people that can follow my journey, other Aussie journeys. And you just never know, there might be that 10-year-old kid that goes down with his dad or a couple mates and they watch it, and, that leads to them making a decision saying, I want to go to college and play American football. I think just having that exposure is going to be unreal.
Yeah, I'm going to be there, and it's going to be absolutely huge for sure.
Yeah.
Let's get on to Tampa now, mate. It's obviously still pretty early. OTAs are close, but what's the feeling like? You've been back and you've been in the building, and how's the feeling at the moment?
Yeah, feeling's good, man. I think, these guys have won the South the last 4 years. So there's that confidence in that. You look at just the guys around the team, they've been doing it. They've got that good core of guys. I feel like they haven't made any like crazy big moves of losing guys or, anything like that. And it seems like all these guys want to be here. I've been at places where there's always kind of a bit of chatter in the locker room about, oh, F this or F that, and this coach is this and this coach is that. But here, man, like I said earlier, it's all business. You know what I'm saying? Like, these guys know they're at a good organization, one that's just won a Super Bowl in, pretty recently. So you probably don't want to be anywhere else. And, just the way they go about their work, man, there's none of that fluff stuff. There's none of these extra little like, oh, let's just try and win a game conversations. It's like, nah, we know what the expectation is. We know what the work that has to be put in is, and guys attack it, man. So, yeah, I love it. I love being down here, and I think it's just going to be an awesome year, man.
And for those that are, well across the league and the players, I just want to know what's Bacon like. He's a real out there kind of fella, but I reckon he'd be an absolute legend in the locker room.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's pretty cool, man. I'd say on-field personality and what you see is a bit different to what I've seen in the locker room. I think he's pretty just cool, calm, collected, just goes about his business, always has a good smile on his face, always just there to work, man. And I think he's there to just get better himself every day. I think he wants to be one of the best guys in the league and be in those conversations with the Josh Allens, with the Lamars and, Joe Burrows and things like that. I think people sleep on him a lot, and I think he has that chip on his shoulder, and that's why you see that firiness, that you see that edge that he plays with, because I think that's what he is. He knows he can be that. He was it in college. He's been it in the league. And now he's got, full control of this team. And yeah, I think he's just unreal, man. And always the nicest guy, man, around the facility, saying hi to everybody, giving guys some dap, whatever it is, lunch, people that help set up stuff, security, whatever it is, man. He's always a guy that goes out of his way for anyone on the team. So ultimate teammate, man. And then, as I said, we're going to have to get on the field and start doing some drills against them coming up. So yeah, it's going to be good to compete against him now, and know that he's on my team, not going against him.
And how is the body? You said the knees never felt better. How's the body heading into year 10?
Yeah, it's feeling good, man. It's feeling really good. I feel like this off season did a few things different. I felt like just focused on a bit more of just like the injury prevention stuff, just a bit of the rehab stuff. And instead of typically my off seasons have just been kind of get back into it, the heavy lifting, heavy running. But this off season, I was like, let me just work on the body a bit more, really like dial in what I have to, and just to make sure I'm feeling good. Because, if I'm in there chasing like a max squat number in the off season, is that going to benefit me in terms of like longevity in the league and how I'm going to feel come later in this year and stuff? So I've just been smarter with the way I've approached my training and all that. But yeah, it's feeling great, man. And I feel like, as I said, being part of an organization that isn't desperate to, we need to win every game because we lost 20 games last year and this and that and new coaches and all that. There's a process to it. And I think the strength staff, the nutrition staff, and the way the coaches all go about the ramp up periods here, it's so different to, these other teams that I've been on, where it's been like, day one, we're going to drop you guys in the deep end. Day two, we're dropping you in the deep end. It's a true ramp up. And these guys are really more focused on, let's understand the scheme. Let's understand why we're doing things on defense. The physical part's going to come. These next few weeks of OTAs, training camp, the physical part's going to come. And if you're a true pro, you're working regardless. So let's really focus on the mental. Let's focus on the game and how we can get those, you know, little inches closer to being better than we were on the field last year. Because everyone's going to be great physically. Everyone's going to be faster, better, stronger. But can we improve our thinking? Can we improve our communication? Can we improve all that little stuff? So when it does get, deep in the game, are those things still going good? So.
And for yourself, you're obviously, you're so grounded, and I've loved the mentality that we've got out of this conversation. But what does a successful season look like for you personally?
Yeah, personally, man, I feel like, I don't know, I still feel like I'm yet to have my best year. I feel like I've had some good years, but I always write down like a couple goals like at the start of the off season and through camp, and typically those goals are like 5+ sacks, 10+ TFLs, contribute on all phases of the game, so special teams, kicking phase, defense. And then, hopefully win a championship. That's what I want to do. So, my goal is to try and get a championship. 10 years in this thing, and they're tough to come by. Some guys are blessed and it happens in the first year for them. But, I've been on this journey, and yeah, like I said, it's just showing up to work every day, trying to improve on these little things and still improve my game. I feel like there's so much learning for me still to do. And, I'm surrounded by some other great guys in the D-line room, Vita Vea, Greg Gaines, Logan Hall, and, Kalijah. For so many guys that are just like, they might be a few years younger than me, but just the experience you can just learn from just talking ball with these guys. And how do you see this block? How do you play this block? When you see this formation, what are you thinking? You never know, someone can just say something and it just clicks in your mind a little bit differently. And yeah, it's just, refreshing to be around a new group of guys and, guys that have done it at a high level and done it well.
Mate, you've been so good with your time. I've got a couple of questions just to finish off, but
yeah.
Like you said, we've worked around it's been tough to get it, but
yeah,
we've worked around the time. The sun's just coming up here, and it's obviously setting where you are, getting in the darkest room in Tampa Bay.
I know, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry.
Nah, it's all good. But as the sun sets on your career, whenever that comes, do you have an idea of what, the future holds?
Yeah, I don't have anything really set in stone right now. Something that I've really developed like the last couple of years is definitely like the mentoring, being around the youth. I feel like the game's given me so much, man. Like I want to be able to give that to the next generation. I feel like I try to do that with my teammates now coming up, but I think just being around the younger kids that are going through stuff. I was just talking to my partner the other day, maybe getting into some men's mental health stuff. I know that's a big issue back home in Australia, so I'd love to try and get something going there, maybe post-career. But I just feel like it's given me so much in life and just lessons and things, adversity, and I just can carry that to so many different aspects of life and professionalism that, just to give back to the communities, be around the kids that are coming up, be around the youth that are trying to get to the position that I'm in and any little part that I can give them. But outside of that, just really just helping out where I can, whether it's my kids are going to be going to high school and stuff soon. So I'd love to be around that. Local church, getting involved in that and talking to kids there. But I really enjoy like the mentoring, man, or like I said earlier, the operation side of football, whether it maybe get into scouting, maybe get into, one of the player development roles at a club or something like that, because I do feel like I've had a lot of adversity coming from Australia, battling injuries, things happening through your career, being cut, being released, whatever else happens. And then, being able to just talk to guys at a human level and just, let them know that, hey, even if all this stuff's happening off the field, this is how to be a pro, how to deal with it, giving them some of the tools that I've dealt with. And yeah, I just feel like, being around sport, still being around it will definitely be my passion. So.
Yeah, that's huge. And I love the mental space that you're going into. Like you said, it is huge over here at the moment. And the more we talk about it, the better it'll be. But
Yeah.
last one, mate, and you've given so much already, but what advice would you give to any like young boy or girl that's over here playing, whether they want to make the NFL or flag's huge as well. So
Yeah.
what
I
advice
think
would
I
you give
think
to those kids?
any advice would just be, it'd be if like you got to want to do it for you at the end of the day. I think if it's something that you're really passionate about and you want to do, like you just have to block out the noise. You have to block out everyone that doesn't believe in it, doesn't see your vision, and everything's right there in front of you. So, like if you want to go be a doctor, go be a doctor. Like you visualize it, visualize how you're going to get there, and literally make those little stepping stones and just take it one stone at a time. And sometimes you're going to hit that roadblock, but it's okay. What happens when that happens? I might need to take a couple steps back and go a different way around. I might need to go to the left to go back straight. But there's going to be a path somewhere, but you got to want to do it at the end of the day. Your parents can want it for you, your friends, your teachers, everyone can want it for you. But if you don't want it, like it's not going to happen. So whatever it is that you're passionate about, just you got to want to do it the most out of everyone. You got to believe it in yourself. You got to see that vision and just chase it. And as that process happens, like it's crazy because like as just say I want to get to college. Once you get to college, you're already going to be 10 more steps ahead of where you want to get to next, and you'll realize that original vision is just another stone that you've had to get on to get to the next one. So it's just this path of life, this journey, and whatever it is you want to do, like you got to want to do it.
Yeah, love it, love it. And anyone who's listening to this, it's just I can picture exactly what you're saying now about being 15 years ago when there was no way of actually getting to college without emailing 500 schools and
Yeah.
getting 2 replies. Like, I love the story. I wasn't expecting the stories that have come out today, and it's been huge and awesome to speak to you, mate. So
No,
all the
I
best this
appreciate it,
year,
man.
and year 10.
Thanks, mate.
I think we've got some good things coming out of Tampa Bay this year, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Let's definitely catch up again later this year.
Absolutely, would love to have you back.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Thomas. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Take care.